Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Rain Whalen.
And I'm Lady Ticklefoot.
I mean, that's not the dumbest one that you've done. You've done dumber.
Yeah.
Him cracked me up.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, I do.
And now past Rain made sure to put an image of him.
Yeah. I saw. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy. So you said you had a rant that you wanted to get through real quick.
Yeah, I did. Because while we were talking off mic about the Ice Cube War of the Worlds that I will not see.
Fuck no, I will not see it either.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch that. But it had me thinking because I had mentioned, and it just like, it spewed from my mouth like poison. Was, maybe they had to make it, right, to keep the rights, right? Because sometimes studios have to do that. They have to make a movie to keep rights. And so my rant, I thought of this while thinking of that, and I'm like, what? It's such a shame that I know that. And I think it's a shame that that Hollywood and the studio system and like the behind the scenes stuff is so ingrained now within the film space and the overall collective knowledge of movie making and of the movie going experience that it kind of ruins it a little bit. Because like knowing that we're getting a new Spider-Man because they had to, right? Or like Sony keeps cranking out these really terrible movies so they can keep the rights to these characters, right? Knowing that ruins it. Knowing that, like, I don't know, there's something about like modern movie going, modern the modern film experience to me is it's kind of a bummer because we know too much. Like I know too much about like the bureaucracy of movie making. Like I get that I like movies. I've dedicated, most of my life to studying, movies and stuff like that, but sometimes it just kind of ruins it. Like I don't know if I'm articulating this correctly, but sometimes the behind the scenes stuff, it's sort of like, if I didn't know it, I would enjoy this more,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because you're right. Because I remember the first time hearing the whole like, well, if a studio didn't make it, they would lose the rights. Infamously, of course, is the Fanforstic reboot, the gritty Miles Teller Fantastic Four reboot, because that's what that was. Fox, to maintain the rights for Fantastic Four, the movie rights, that is, they almost lost it. And I don't think that was Josh Schrank's fault entirely. I mean, that man gave us Chronicle, but
yeah,
you're right. It is such an interesting, it is like, we know how the sausage gets made in a way, and especially considering that we've been on a film set, so we've really gotten to see behind the scenes and really see how it gets made. But I
don't know, it's sort of like the business side of it is sort of like kind of taking you out of it a little, because not so much the behind the scenes, like not so much, I don't mean like, watching Peter Jackson, direct literally thousands of people to make urukai noises, right? Like that's not what I mean. That's really interesting.
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is like the business side, the contract side, like the who has rights to what, who's do like blah 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 blah. Like it's sort of like, it's a huge bummer that has become a part of the movie going experience, or the like at least in like the film aficionado community. Like, if you enjoy movies, if you love movies, if you are interested in it, like chances are like this stuff comes up a lot, and that's kind of a
Mhm.
bummer to me. I don't want to think about the business side. You know what I mean? Like
No, I
sometimes it helps explain things, right? But
yeah.
overall, it's sort of like, ugh, you know?
No, I get you. When we visit my mom and Scott, and hearing Scott talk about like certain projects and more the business side of
Sure.
movie making, I'm a part of me is like, is this something I do want to still pursue as a career
Yeah.
at some point? And of course, the answer is always still yes, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, because especially like what we were talking about with Ice Cube's World of Worlds. What I was trying to see is I wanted to see how much fucking money Universal and Amazon spent on that bullshit, and then how much they lost, because that I'm sure they took a. Because here's the thing, I would say this is part of my rant. Is I know whenever filmmakers make a movie, they're not going into it being like, yeah, this is going to suck. This is going to be terrible. Like, I know they're probably going into it like, man, we really hope this is like audiences really like this. We like it. Let's hope they like it. But at some point in this decision process, specifically for this movie,
Yeah.
for Ice Cube's War of the Worlds, at no point did anyone say, wait, this movie about alien invasions, we're just going to focus on one man on a computer screen?
Yeah.
Like, and then also the aliens are after our data?
Yeah,
Like,
it's a different approach, and I guess I admire the swing, but because the guy he had directed Searching, which I heard is actually good, like with John
oh, that's the
Cho,
one
and
with Joe Cho. Yeah.
yeah, and he's searching for his missing daughter, and it's all like that. It's in that format where he's on the computer screen, and it's all that, which it works for that, right? Uh, I'm not sure if it works for um, this story, because this story is sort of like you want to be kind of in it, you want to be in the middle of it, you want to see these gigantic alien things, and you want to see, like, you know what I mean. um so yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it just popped in my head just right before we got started, and I was like, let me share
No,
these misgivings.
yeah. No, and I again, like I said, I understand where you're coming from, man. But with that being said, welcome back, everyone. Longest intro. Well, not the longest intro
No
ever,
way.
but
Not.
um, so also you're probably wondering why we're releasing this episode a day later, um, and that was to give Jeremy
My
some
fault.
time.
Yeah.
It's not your fault, buddy. I've caused us to at least delay an episode before, so it's not your fault.
Yeah, we're just busy, man. So
You had to go camping,
yeah,
you had to go touch grass.
gotta go touch grass. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had to see the in-laws, I
Yeah.
mean, you got to.
Gots to.
Got to.
Gots to have to. And
Um
they had just gone fishing, and so they fried some fish. It was good.
hell
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm going to be real. Growing up with no, that's a lie. You know what? I just caught myself in a lie. Because I was going to say, growing up with a dad and grandparents that love to hunt and love to fish, I've always, grown up having quail and uh venison. But I was just about to say, like, but I don't ever remember having fish. And then I immediately caught myself because my great grandparents actually used to live in Brady, and that's
Oh
all they
yeah.
would do
Yeah.
is they would go fish, and that would be the fish that they would make. So, I just probably don't remember it.
Yeah.
But with that being said, so buddy, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today we are discussing the Tony Gilroy um, political um, psychological thriller, Michael Clayton.
Yeah, so like I said in our tease last week, like I have heard of this movie before, but I just never got around to seeing it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And I was gonna say, I think you're right. Well, I say I think you're right. I know you're right that this movie did kind of fall through the cracks, um, which is so baffling to me considering how many awards it was nominated for, and the fact that Tilda Swinton won one uh, for this movie is insane. And that I was like, but why don't I remember wanting to pursue this movie?
I remember lumping this movie and The American together. I'd be like, oh, they're the same, you know. I remember
Well,
thinking that because The American came out, I think, a year or so after this. Also with George Clooney
yeah.
and Michael Clayton, The American. I'm like, they're probably like the same. I had no interest in seeing The American, and I don't know if it's even any good. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But I just assumed Michael Clayton was sort of like, a very straightforward, drama, or whatever.
Mhm.
And I thought that it might be boring. And the title is for sure a little boring. I'm not going to lie about that. Um, but once you hear enough about it, and once you see it, you're like, I get it. Like,
So, you know what's funny? You said you confused this movie with The American, and as soon as you said that, I remember confusing this movie with The Ides of March,
ah,
also with George Clooney.
dude, not um not something I'd blame you for because like I understand. And I've seen the Ides. Here's what's crazy is I saw the Ides of March. Um, I couldn't tell you a thing about it. By the way, I know it's a political drama. It's got Ryan Gosling, of course, and I think George Clooney's running for president. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, and I think like Ryan is like a staffer who like really looks up to George Clooney.
I don't remember.
I've never seen it,
I saw it,
but I've
and I was too young. I was too young for it when I saw it or I consider myself too young for it when it came out because I was probably like I was definitely in high school when both of these came out. The Ides of
yeah.
March and Michael Clayton, and um, of course, when this movie came out, who cares? Because There Will Be Blood was um, was the hit, and so was No Country for Old Men. I mean, forget it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, like anyway, okay, so I guess I can give a quick synopsis.
Okay.
Um, okay, George Clooney plays Michael Clayton. Michael Clayton is a lawyer, that's in quotes, for this big law firm. He is a fixer, so he goes in and clients of the law firm have any sort of problems and they're on retainer. Guess what? He's going to fix it, he's going to take care of it, and that's it, right?
Mhm.
He considers himself a janitor. He just cleans up messes all day, every day.
Yeah.
The firm that he works for has been working on this class action lawsuit defending this large corporation that is accused of poisoning and killing people with their pesticides. And it's taken, I think they said like,
6 years.
yeah, 6 years of putting a case together. And their head litigator seems to kind of lose his grip and has a nervous breakdown. And so Michael Clayton is called in to fix this problem, right? And so now he's stuck in the middle of wrangling him and trying to get the firm back on track while their head litigator is, out of commission. Um, nearing the tail end of this lawsuit. Of course, the head litigator is played by Tom Wilkinson, who is giving the performance of his lifetime.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
Uh,
stunning.
I I hate that we will never get another performance from Tom.
I know.
It. I mean, we've lost so many great actors, but I mean, really, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
That's
off
okay.
mid synopsis, but just you're right.
No, I get
Tom. I mean, everyone is on their A game, but Tom is just loved it. Anyway, continue.
While trying to get Arthur, Tom Wilkinson's character, under control, Tom Clayton finds himself in the middle of a conspiracy, a cover-up, with this large corporation. As he's getting closer and closer into finding out the truth, as he finds out the truth of what's going on and that they are actually liable and they knew it, they are now after him. They kill Arthur. They attempt to kill Michael Clayton. Clayton avoids death very narrowly, and ends up I guess you would say not entrapping. I'm sorry. Sort of partners with the police and finally gets them to admit what they've done, and they're caught. He gets in a cab. That's Michael Clayton. That's yada yada. And whatever. But this movie's stellar. It's killer. I loved Michael Clayton.
Yeah,
yeah,
man, it was so good. Like look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was a little worried I wasn't gonna like it. I mean,
sure.
I know I'm sure I've said it on the show before. I love George Clooney. I think George is he's just one of those actors, that it's hard not to like a performance that he does. I mean, while Ashley and I were in Austin back last month, I, as a joke, put on Batman and Robin because
Sure.
Ashley genuinely loves that movie. And watching it, I was just like, George is doing his best. Like, he was told to come in and play this sort of lighter, family-friendly version of Bruce Wayne and Batman. And you know what? The man does it. He did what he was asked to do. Granted, that movie has a slew of problems. None of them George's fault, by the way. But I was a little apprehensive. And then the fact that we get a 4 days later, 15 fucking minutes into the movie,
Yeah.
I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on?
Well,
And
I appreciate that the movie sort of like kind of drops you in, and you're like,
yeah,
I don't know who any of these people are. Holy shit, that's Sidney Pollack. Wait, what's going on? Who? Wait, that's Tilda Swinton. People seem to be actively in the middle of something that I'm not aware of, but seems really important, right?
mm-hmm.
And then George Clooney stops for these horses, and it's like, why is he doing that for? And then his car blows up, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and
And
then you get that 4 days later
by
or 4 days earlier.
by the grace of God, they're like, hey, let's fill you in,
yeah.
But what a cool way to start. I don't know if you looked this up or if you were going to bring this up later, but we can bring it up now. That this Tony Gilroy knows how to craft a story. He knows how to make something incredibly compelling, as he not only directed Rogue One but created Andor.
Holy shit! Really?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently, I'm a fake Star Wars fan over here. Holy Jesus.
Yeah, he wrote. He wrote Rogue One, and he created Andor. And his
Holy
brother.
Jesus.
Hold on, this is gonna be crazy. His brother directed Nightcrawler.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
dude, and Nightcrawler is so fucking good.
Have we done Nightcrawler?
We have not.
Oh well, shit. But anyway, so the Gilroys are talented people. But so here's what I love. So the the movie opens with Tom Wilkinson's monologue, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
him sort of explaining how he has had this epiphany, this very visceral, violent epiphany that what he is doing, who he is working for, this class action lawsuit is all bullshit. He is on the wrong side and he feels like he's being reborn. Like he talks about like he feels like he's covered in amniotic fluid. Like that he is, having this born again revelation that he finally has his eyes open and he sees, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the while, we are we're looking at liminal spaces of corporate life, right? Of this law firm, um, with anonymous people, um, or an anonymous person, pushing all of this paperwork that seems really important and a lot of, it seems very daunting the amount of paperwork um, that they're transporting. And then we are in this room with a bunch of anonymous people that are doing something that seems very important, but it's very chaotic. And they're like, it's like a machine. Like these are just pieces of a mechanical machine, right? That
Mm-hmm.
are working to solve a singular purpose. Um, and then of course we get closer looks at everybody, and that's when we're Sidney Pollock's there, which is insane, by the way. Uh, Sidney Pollock's a legend. And then Tilda Swinton is there, and we're like, okay, well, okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. And then then we get Michael Clayton at the card game. And I love this idea of the cold, empty, isolating space of corporate America being shown over the monologue of Tom Wilkinson. It's so good.
Yeah. 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 I really love um hearing Tom Wilkinson's uh voiceover, because at first I thought, because I looked up just a little bit about the movie. I didn't want to know much, just a little bit, and I did read that Michael is the firm's fixer. So I thought that it was opening with like, I mean, I was kind of right, but the problem that Michael was going to be facing the whole movie, which, like I said, I was kind of right.
Good.
Um, but I was taking his monologue very kind of literally, like, oh my god, like he killed this poor intern. But then, as it starts to go on, I'm like, oh, he's having a dream. This is a dream he had been having. Um, and you're right, and I love how we slowly get to meet some of the players, the partners like Barry and Marty, um, and like how Barry is very upfront. He calls the reporter that he's on the phone with um, a real "see you next Tuesday,"
Yeah.
and then Marty is just very direct and very a little bit more respectful, but gets right to the point. Um, and then we meet Tilda Swinton, Karen,
Who's sort of losing her mind in the bathroom.
it was losing her mind in the bathroom, uh, like sweating profusely, and like, and so what I love is that we get to kind of see why, like, I feel like in this moment we get to understand who Barry and Marty are, but the film is like, you're gonna learn who Karen is. um and then when we meet Michael Clayton, like it's very just almost a perfect character introduction. He's very to the point. Like I thought I thought he was going to beat the shit out of that guy. Like for sure. I was like, because all I knew was he was a fixer. So I was like, oh man, you don't know who you're talking with right now, bro. You're being real disrespectful right now, bro. That's Michael Clayton right there. But then he just gets up and leaves. And I was like, okay. So he's not that type of fixer. And um I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that in these 15 minutes we get to meet these people. And again, with Karen, Tilda Swinton, I do feel like they were saying like, well, hang on, we're gonna show you who she is, but we really want you to understand the players of this law firm first, which is
Sure.
Barry, Marty, and Michael. Um, and then to an extent, Arthur, since we've been hearing his voice for most of this, 15-minute opener, really. Act one, honestly. Um, and I really love that because then, like, when we get that 4 days earlier, after we see Michael's car explode, I don't know about you, but I was filled with such dread that the very next shot is him picking his son up because I was like, oh my god, was his kid in the car?
Sure, and I mean that's probably on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, the film gives us a little bit more about Michael, that he's a divorcee and, he's a single father, trying his best. He's in debt with a restaurant, well, which we already knew. Well, we knew the restaurant failed, but, he's in debt with the restaurant that he tried to open with his brother. And, and I just love that we get all of this information very, very fluidly, very organically. You know, that Tony doesn't spoon feed the audience. Like, you
No,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
No, I completely understand what you're saying. Michael Clayton is such an interesting character, especially that it's George Clooney, because George Clooney, in his personal life, is obviously very charismatic, very suave, very put together. He's very fancy. Michael Clayton, he's charismatic, but he's more of an everyman, which I appreciated. Sure, he
Mm-hmm.
works for this really fancy law firm, but his suits aren't tailored. You know,
Yeah.
he's um yeah, he has a Mercedes, but
It's the
like
firms. Yeah.
yeah, uh it's like he's obviously not in it for the money, or if he is, you know what I mean, it's
Yeah.
he's not, you know what I mean, like he's more of an everyman, which is really interesting, and that's sort of what we're not used to that with George Clooney, because like
Mm-hmm.
before this, we had the Ocean's trilogy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the exact opposite.
Yeah. I mean, Danny Ocean, everyone wants to be Danny Ocean.
And honestly, I don't want to be Michael Clayton. Michael Clayton is sort of beaten down. He's bruised. He's reserved. Um, he's good at what he does, but he knows his limitations to what he does, which is why
Mm-hmm.
the perfect scene, right, to understand what Michael Clayton does. I love this choice. So when he goes to see Dennis O'Hare, by the way, holy shit, right?
Yeah, dude. Fucking love Dennis O'Hare. Um, Anytime, like, look, I know you and I have our opinions of Ryan Murphy. But anytime Dennis O'Hare is in any American Horror Story season,
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah, I think for me personally, if we're talking Dennis O'Hare, American Horror Story, it's Liz Taylor all the way.
In
In
Hotel, yeah,
Hotel, yeah,
110%, full
unbelievable.
stop.
Anyway, so what I love about this scene is that we know what he does. He's gonna go do it, right? He's the fixer for this law firm, one of their largest clients, one of their most lucrative clients. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, is in a jam. He's gonna go fix it. Cool. Let's see what he does. And it's kind of disappointing because What's there to fix, man? You fucked up. You left the scene of a crime. You're an idiot. I can get you a lawyer. you know? Um, and that's it. Sometimes you can't just make things disappear. And I appreciated that because now we're seeing that not only is Michael Clayton, sort of not what we're expecting, but he's also not amoral either. Like
Yeah.
he's not gonna let this guy kind of get away with it. I mean, he'll try his best to get him a defense that, whatever works for him, but um he's not gonna, like, if he actually did hit a person, he's not gonna just let that go away. And that's what this guy was expecting. He was expecting it to just vanish. Like, he was expecting this guy to come in and just make it all go away and like it never happened. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not what he does. You know, he fixes what he can, and he can, mop up any mistake that you make within reason. And this is not one of those. And I like that by seeing something he has limitations on, we understand sort of his expertise in what he does through what he can't do, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. This scene has, yeah, that scene in particular, they let us know what he does. And you're right that he's not amoral, that he does have a moral compass. Um, but, uh, yeah, he's not going to let this guy off scot free. And essentially, yeah, like your best bet at this point is to get a get a local lawyer, because your options are getting smaller. And I love that Dennis O'Hare was like, "You haven't even told me the options," and in a way, he kind of did. He kind of told him the answers, or told him the options, but he didn't want to listen. But I just love sort of the non-dialogue between Dennis O'Hare and his wife, because he's getting more amped because he feels like Michael Clayton isn't this miracle worker, which he's not. But then when she throws her glass against the wall, it was almost kind of a shut the fuck up and listen to the man.
Yeah.
Because he kind of shuts up a little bit, and then when he gets the call, is that the police? They wouldn't call, and it's almost like Michael's like, yeah, I got you now, dog. Like, shut up and let me do my job.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, and I love that.
Yeah, it's such a compelling scene, and something I read, and I hope I understood it correctly because I'm about to repeat it, is that apparently Tony Gilroy really took his time to create lore for Realm and Conquest. Like,
Really?
yeah, like it was almost like a Cones of Dunshire thing. You know what I mean? Like, he really made this thing, so it would make sense, and so like it would feel real, right?
Uh-huh.
It's one of those relationships that I really appreciated and was surprised by was Arthur's sort of friendship with Henry. Like they're kind of buddies, and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
That when Arthur is stuck in that hotel room and he tried to call Michael, I guess, and got Henry instead. They just start chatting about Realm and Conquest, and I thought that was really interesting that Arthur was putting his experience into the conversation and trying to understand, what Henry is talking about, and Henry's sort of, going from his perspective on, actually knowing the lore and the, the sort of the expert on Realm and Conquest. And I like that just Arthur's just so taken by it and uses it to take down North, which
Yeah.
which I liked. And I like
Yeah.
it's not just filler stuff. It's not just like we need to give this kid an interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to show that Michael is sort of emotionally distant from his son. How do we do that? You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
mattered eventually that Roman conquest kept getting brought up. And even the horses, because like when Clayton was looking through the book, there was that, horse in the field, um and it's sort of, you when you see that image, you're like, I that's what motivated him to stop, right?
Hmm.
Um because he's trying
Yeah.
to connect with his son in some way. Um but again, it would just surprise me, and I got a kick out of it that Henry and Arthur were kind of buddies, which I like.
Yeah. And speaking of Arthur, good. This is a good segue, man. Can we just gush about Tom
Tom Wilkinson,
Wilkinson,
yeah,
dude? Like, and I love that we see this man who clearly has a chemical mental imbalance, but is almost as sharp as ever. You know, clearly something's going on upstairs, but um, I'm not gonna lie to you again. I finished the movie
that's
today.
fine.
Um, but I was eating dinner and it got to the scene where Michael finally is able to track Arthur back down.
Yeah,
And he's got that bag
the
of
baguettes.
baguettes. And dude, the way he like dissects the in between the lines of what Michael's saying about how, like, they're gonna have you committed, and he like essentially tears it apart, like, while still thinking like, well, Michael, you just think I'm crazy, but actually, and I have no criminal record in the state of New York. You would have been better getting me when I was still in Milwaukee. You do not want to go to court with me. Like, I was like, I literally stood up and was like, that shit was tight. like like Arthur, God, Arthur is such a great character. And again, Tom, may he rest in peace. Tom did such a fantastic job. Um, Honestly, I was sad that he got killed. Like, it wasn't fair,
Yeah,
you know?
it's one of those where, this film is sort of like, at first you're like, he's had a nervous breakdown, he's had a history of, maybe not mental illness, but at least of episodes like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he has some sort of anxiety or depressive disorder that, makes him sort of, have episodes every now and then. But then, of course, like, as the movie progresses, you're like, he's telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
He sounds crazy because he's so overwhelmed by what he knows and how it sounds, right? But then, of course, U North has hitmen, basically,
Yeah.
um, and that's their version of a fixer, by the way, um, which I liked the juxtaposition between
Yeah.
the two methods of what fix it means. And it's all true. And back then, that makes me sound old, but I'm not. Back then in 2007, yeah, I mean, corporations were seen as sort of like these faceless entities that, yes, all they care about is money, but whatever. Like, this is sort of like, we're reaching a little bit, you know
Mm-hmm.
but now we know that's not true, and they are absolutely 100%. They got it. They nailed it. Like, this
Yeah.
is what a large conglomerate corporation is, and this is what it looks like, and this is absolutely plausible, and
Yeah.
you know, putting it into a modern context too, because like, we have now um examples of corporations deliberately doing things to hurt the public, or con the public, or cheat the public out of their money. Um, I guess the famous case would be the Luigi Mangione shooting, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's almost like they were predicting this, right? Like, this is where it's headed, or this is like a pessimistic view of capitalism, and how large corporations handle their quote mistakes, or if they were to harm the general public, this is how they would react, and they nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
With United Healthcare, if we're going to use this as the example, which I guess I decided, United Healthcare, they deny more claims than any insurance company in the U.S. Right? Um, Basically, they kill people. Basically,
Yeah.
I hate insurance companies. But and I saying that I do have United Healthcare through my job, don't have a choice. But um, but again, in 2007, this wasn't seen as like an everyday thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge anyway, from my perspective, this seemed like sort of not an exaggeration to an extent, but sort of a worst case scenario, or like, a pessimistic view of corporations and capitalism.
Right.
And I think this is one of the reasons why we're hearing more and more about this movie, right? Like, I think 5 years ago, no one's talking about Michael Clayton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm seeing it all over the place, which is partly why I was like, oh yeah, we can talk about Michael Clayton. Like, you know, um, I guess people are starting to rediscover it, and that's kind of fun. And I think this is a big reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Is our collective sort of awakening of what these companies are really doing, and you know, what they're willing to do to serve the bottom line, or to serve their shareholders or whatever, right? And it's disgusting, and
Mm-hmm.
I think no one personifies the gravity and the weight of having to deal with the fallout of one of these situations than Tilda Swinton's character Karen. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad now we're segueing to her, because I was gonna bring her up
yeah,
once you were done. Yeah, because through her we really get to see kind of what we were talking about with Michael Clayton, of that he's not amoral, that he does sort of have a moral compass, but we do get to see that sort of corrupt Karen, like when she calls their company's fixers. She even says, I really don't know how this works. And when the main guy essentially tells her that they're going to have to kill Arthur, she just says, just fix it. Like, do whatever you need to, just fix it. You know, um, and we do kind of see that corrupt her, well, kind of weigh on her, because especially when we come full circle and see why she's in the bathroom, um because one, it is sort of unraveling,
yeah,
and two, um she essentially just ordered a hit on uh Michael, who to her knowledge was just doing his job too,
yeah.
and also has a kid, and so we see that she does have a conscience, but we do see it corrupt her a little bit.
Well, and I really the loved the decision to have her be in a room and giving a monologue, and then also show her practicing the monologue, and show her getting herself ready and going through what she's going to say, because being this head litigator on their side, um being their representative in this legal battle, um she's sort of like their pawn, their puppet. Like, she's having to practice these things because they're telling her to say these things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she's having to practice because these aren't these aren't her opinions, these aren't her words really. Um, and I liked the choice to have her practice, and then we see the final result back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially getting herself ready. It's like she's having to put on a costume. She's having to make herself into this thing that, is serving this gigantic corporation that has essentially murdered hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And Karen is also very full of herself. When Michael meets her for the first time, you know, Michael's trying to do his job, which is assure her that they've got this under control, that it won't happen again. And she is just, pressing him, and all he can offer is, well, I don't know. Like I don't know what to tell you. And she gets up and leaves from that meeting. Um, but I feel like she's sort of kind of fascinated by Michael, especially when she asks her assistants, I guess, like, who is this guy? And she learns everything about him. And she's like, he's been at this law firm for 17 years and he's not a partner? That's odd, you know? Like, I feel like she's fascinated a little bit by Michael.
Yeah, because he's not motivated by a title or money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes him so dangerous, is that, yeah, he's been there that long, um, but he's not interested in running the place.
Yeah.
He's not interested in, climbing the corporate ladder. He's not interested in getting the 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 client with the biggest pockets. He's not, trying to buy a Lamborghini. Like, he doesn't care about that.
If anything, Michael's just trying to survive.
And that's what makes him so dangerous. I think that, if he can't be corrupted by these things, that's all they have.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why at the very end, when he is, what you think he is, trying to shake her down for money, for hush money, um, and she's more than willing to do so because now she has leverage. Now she has something that he wants and needs, but it was all just to get her
Yeah.
to confess. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and I started to suspect that's what he was doing, and of course, we the audience, we know, especially when he goes, I sold out Arthur for 80 million or 80,000. And we're like, "Oh, wait, hang on, wait a minute. You asked Marty for that 80,000 to get you out of debt with I'm assuming that loan shark."
yeah,
Um, you know, and and so that's when I was like, "Oh no, he's got something up his sleeve." Also, what a Goosebumps walk away for you know what? I'll be fair, 5 million, 5 million, and I'll shut up about Arthur. And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, five will do." Then another five for the 498 people you killed. It's like, no, I still want $10 million.
yeah,
That's a
good.
Goosebumps walk away. But yeah, man, it's
For sure. Okay, so for sure, after his car exploded, I thought he was just gonna disappear. Like, because he
yeah,
threw all his shit in there. Really, let's have them think that they got me. Which at first I was like, all right, so that's a good way to have him get away for a little bit. But then when he got in the car with his brother, I'm like, oh, maybe he's gonna like for real just go, you know.
yeah.
Um, but no, I was glad that we got some closure with the case. Like, I needed that. But
Now here's a question.
yeah,
Here's a question for you, buddy. Since you know, he was wearing a wire and he got Karen. Does that mean now they're going to start looking into the law firm? Because I mean, Marty kind of said without saying they knew this case was dirty from the get-go.
Right.
Like they knew something was off about it, but they continued to defend U North, um, because they had that merger coming up. So do you think Michael kind of took the stance of, well, I'm just going to burn it all down?
Yeah, I don't know. It sort of leaves that open to like, speculation of what's going to happen next, because obviously U North's going down, because they have that hard evidence that the company knew what they were doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that Arthur had them printed like Realms of Conquest.
Yeah,
That was cool.
and had like what was it, like 3,000 copies or something like that
Yeah,
made?
it was like we ran out of red, we had to use blue. That's like that's fine. Um, yeah, and which also, what a cool choice just cinematically for it to be bright red. Because there are moments when Clayton has it in his hand, and when someone else is holding it and it's out of focus, it's clear as day still because it's bright red. And I really like that.
Yeah,
It's sort of like the smoking gun. It is like, um, it's sort of it's not really a MacGuffin, but it's a, it's like
well,
it's a,
it's to pull our focus.
well, yeah, it symbolizes obviously the nail in the coffin for U North and probably for the firm itself. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, what's left for Michael? Who knows? The ending is such a cool choice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was trying to discern the ending. He gets in that cab, and his brother-in-law, right? Is who Gene is, his brother-in-law.
I don't know. Yeah, I think
Um.
so. I think that was because that was his sister's house they were in. I think.
So yeah. So then yeah, Gene would have to be his
Yeah.
brother-in-law. Um. Gene tells him, like, don't go far, and he gets in a cab and just tells the guy, just drive. Here's $50. Go drive till it hits 50. Um. And I was trying to discern like what the expression on his face, this sort of like blank stare, you know, kind of a victory, but kind of a defeat. It almost looked like.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of The Graduate. Have you seen The Graduate?
No, but I know the final scene.
Okay, so at the very end, it's just, I mean, it's perfect. Um, it's perfect because Mike Nichols, like, he had Dustin Hoffman and
And Bancroft.
thank you. He had them like get in the back of the bus, right? And he had just gotten her whisked her away from her own wedding, and they're gonna go off and live happily ever after, seemingly, right? We've
Yeah.
all seen that before. But what Mike Nichols chooses to do is he chooses to linger, right? As their smiles start to fade, and then they just sit there, and now it's sort of like, well, now what, right?
Yeah.
And that's how the movie is, and it's brilliant, right? Um, and it was sort of reminiscent of that. So like, it's not so much, yes, there's a victory at the end, but then there's all that was cost, all that was
Mm-hmm.
that was paid for this victory, and and I think that's all going on in his mind as he's just sitting in the back of that taxi cab.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I'm sure he was like, um, it's not going to bring Arthur back. Arthur was telling the truth, and no one believed him. And no one almost cared to even want to listen to him. Um, but also, I'm sure Michael was also like, well, like, what am I gonna do now? I've been working kind of with the bad guys this whole time. You know, I'm sure he's going through a range of motion all in that one scene.
And I'll throw this out there. Also, it might be like, what if New York, U North, like gets away with it? What if they get out of it? Like, yeah, I mean,
Like,
sure, the police are busting in there. They have this document, and they have whatever Karen said on the recording. Is that enough? I don't know. You know what I mean?
they could always throw Karen under the bus and be like, oh well, she knew the whole time and she never present, or something.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good thought.
Because like we've seen that happen too. Like where corporations do this horrible, evil, awful, nasty thing, and then they get away with it.
Yep. Yeah. Shout out to the nice guys.
Yeah. Shout out
but
to
yeah,
Big Short.
yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is sort of like kind of like a shallow victory end that we get to sit with Michael, like, yeah, we won, yeah, we got the real bad guys, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks because you feel like, especially with Michael, once he got her to say that we would pay you 15 son of a bitch, $10 million, he kind of has a little coy, like, you're fucked. Like, and at least for me, I was like, oh man, yeah, he's got her. And then we get the cab and I'm like, oh, should we be happy? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if we should be happy now.
Yeah, I don't know. Sort of, it's sort of like up in the air, Yeah, it's up in the air. Another great George Clooney movie.
I mean, for real. Man, again, I don't know if I've said it enough on the show. I feel like we haven't talked a whole lot about a lot of George Clooney films. If not, that's a travesty. Because man, I love George Clooney. I was calling. I tried to convince Ashley to watch this movie with me because I thought she would have liked it. It's a thriller. It's got a conspiracy. It's somewhat grounded. It's not too fantastical. It's not.
No, and
it's not black and white.
Well, no, and I think that's sort of the appeal now for this movie is that it is sort of a straightforward. I mean, yes, there's twists and turns, and it's a conspiracy, and there's a lot to uncover and discover and all of that, but it's a contemporary drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't really make contemporary dramas like this anymore. It's a little too risky because it's kind of niche. Hopefully that'll change because with this having sort of a resurgence in the public consciousness, especially in the film community or film, whatever, like people who do stuff like this. They're sort of starting to discover it again, and maybe things like I don't know. Trying to think of a good example to go along with this one, like the Pelican Brief or something. You know what I mean? Like Runaway Jury. Those kind of things. Like contemporary, straightforward thrillers, psychological thrillers, dramas. Fracture's another good one. I'm picking a lot of courtroom things, but that's what's coming to mind. But yeah, they don't do this anymore. And I think maybe that's starting to be noticed, that it's sort of been absent in the films being released, and maybe people will want these again, which is cool because I like these.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, because yeah, it is. You're right. It is very straightforward. It's not too outlandish. It's not too, like what you were saying, too out, not too out of the realm of possibility, especially now, in the year 2025, almost 20 years after this movie was made. It's not too fantastical, but who knows? Maybe. Well, with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I didn't say it at the beginning, at the top of the show, I loved it. It was great. Absolutely would watch it again.
Yeah.
As many times as I can. It was awesome.
Yeah. No, this movie rocks, man.
Yeah, I when the movie was over and I was telling Ashley, like, yeah, you would have loved it. I was like, the Clune Man. She was like, the Clune Man. I was like, we're Clunes, like. She was like, what about? She said something. I was like, no, like, Clune. I don't know what she said, but I was like, no, it's either Clune Man or Clunes. Like, like he can't miss. And yeah, again, if I haven't said it enough, absolutely love George Clooney. Maybe one day we'll do Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool, man.
That shit was rad.
Yeah, that movie's
and
so
I watched
good.
that, dude. And I watched that on a whim. I was like, you know what? Let's check this shit out. Bought it on Apple because it was like, I think it was like $6. I was like, fuck it, dude. Let's just watch this shit, dude. It was so good.
There's nothing like watching a movie, on the spur of the moment and it just being super good.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. The last one I did that with was Encendies. I was like, let's just watch.
Oh shit, dude.
And then just, completely, rewired my brain chemistry. So.
Well, are you ready to hear about what we're going to talk about next week?
Yeah.
So I bended my rule a little bit because we make our own rules. I was looking at my list, looking at the other criterions I have on my list. And I was just like, I picked some good ones. And there's one in particular that I am saving, which I'm saving.
Yeah, but that's the trouble with lists, man. You feel tied down to it,
Yeah. So I went into the bedroom and I turned my back to the wall and I ran my fingers. I told Ashley to tell me like when to stop. And of course she wasn't paying attention either, but she kept telling me to stop on like movies we'd already done. Like the first one was Rafifi. And I was like, we've already done Rafifi.
So good.
And then she had me stop and it landed on 8.5. And I was like, Jeremy said this movie's too hard.
It's hard, yeah.
Like I will watch it.
Not small enough.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then like I'm looking at the shelf. So finally like I looked at the shelf and I was just like, there's gotta be something here, man. Like something I really want to talk about. And my eyes hit this movie. And I was like, you know what? We've never talked about this movie. And I've seen it. So I'm breaking my rule just a little bit because I've seen it. And I know you have too. And when I told Ashley we've never talked about it, she was like, are you kidding? I'm like, we've never talked about it. So next week, man. Now I'm keeping up with the one rule that it is in the criterion. So
well, thank God.
I'm keeping a little bit with my rule. So next week we are talking about the 1985 coming of age film, The Breakfast Club.
Cool.
Yeah. Like I said, man, my eyes hit it and I was like, fuck. God, that movie's so good. And that movie's been on my mind recently. And I think it's because at work, our area is doing like this kind of like dance party for charity, which we can choose not to do it. I chose not to because I'm not going to do it. But it's like Footloose themed.
Oh.
And some of my coworkers are trying to learn the Footloose dance.
Sure.
And I mentioned the Breakfast Club to them. I was like, if you can't learn Kevin Bacon's moves, which I mean, shout out to anyone who can learn Kevin Bacon's moves. was like, try doing some of the moves in the Breakfast Club, because they're that dance sequence is pretty low key and pretty easy. And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show or not, but I have a profound love for Molly Ringwald so
That's true.
much. I love her. I love her so much. At any point, I think she's still very gorgeous. But there's something about the Breakfast Club, Molly Ringwald, that just, and the whole movie is just great. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I've already seen it, but we're gonna talk about it.
So I'll leave you with two fun facts. Okay, one.
Okay.
Judd Nelson was closer in age to the guy who played the janitor than he was Anthony Michael Hall.
I thought you were gonna say that this movie ruined Judd Nelson and holy shit. Shut up. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Holy Jesus. Oh my god, I forgot his fucking name. The guy who wrote the fucking movie and directed it.
Oh yeah, John Hughes. Yeah.
John Hughes. Jesus Christ.
Good Lord. Yeah, no, they didn't get along.
Well, I was gonna say this movie really I thought you were gonna say this movie really killed their friendship.
Yeah, kind of. And I was also Judd Nelson once for Halloween from the Breakfast Club. I was I was John Bender for Halloween. What a kick-ass costume that was. Anyway, he's so cool. Yeah, it's so weird because I think the year after this, he was in St. Elmo's Fire. So he and Ali Sheedy were high school students in the Breakfast Club, and they were college graduates in St. Elmo's Fire. So,
dude, Ali Sheedy, bro.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? We're gonna end it on this. Is almost every cast member of the Breakfast Club has shown up in Psych, except for Emilio Estevez. But Sean uses his name as a alias a lot, and that's the closest I think they were able to ever get him to be on the show, is just James Brody being like, and I'm Emilio Estevez. Yeah. But Judd Nelson shows up, Molly Ringwald shows up, and of course Ali Sheedy.
Yeah. Ali Sheedy's like
yeah, she's like a huge character in Psych. I don't think Anthony Michael. Oh, I think Anthony Michael Hall shows up for like 2 seconds.
He's he's what's his face from the Dead Zone. He's just like his character in the Dead Zone. That's good. That's not true.
But yeah, man. Are you excited?
I am. Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah, Breakfast Club, man. That's exciting.
Yeah. Cool. All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Michael Clayton, and we will see you next week for the Breakfast Club.